Exclusive Networks Forti Friday. Today, myself and my colleague Kirk Jones are going to give an overview of the FortiAuthenticator. I'm going to go through a few slides just showing the functionality of the unit, and then I'm going to hand over to Kirk, who's going to do a demo of the product for you. So what the challenge is in network authentication, we want to supply secure access, we want to enable access, and we want to make the complex identity management as low cost as possible. So from a secure access point of view, we want to look at things like identity-based policy and also two-factor authentication to apply a second level of security to our network access. And then we can also enable access through secure and remote guest network access. So for example, if we have guest Wi-Fi users on our network, then we want to be able to authenticate them, but we also want to know who they are and what they're doing. And the FortiAuthenticator, this is a good way of amalgamating all these security risks and management of our security profiles and limit and lower the cost of actually providing two-factor authentication across the network. So as you can see from this diagram here, we have our identity-based users. So these might be people within our organisation, so employees that have Fortinet single sign-on via the means of Active Directory and so on and so forth. We have our enable access here, which is both wired and wireless and remote access users. So if we have someone that's on the wireless network and then they move to the wired network, we can seamlessly port them over without them having to re-authenticate to a particular unit. And then we have the Forti secure access. So for example, this could be employees that are remoting in via VPN access. It could be management of the actual FortiGate itself. And we do this by using things like Forti tokens, whether that be hardware or software-based tokens. So what are the features within FortiAuthenticator? As you can see from the diagram, it has multiples of features relating to authentication. So we have the authentication authorization piece. So this relates to things like Radius, LDAP, 8021X, Radius proxy, the single sign-on mobility agent, which some of you may be aware of, is a feature of the Forti client. And then we also have the web-based login widget, similar to that of a captive portal within a FortiGate, but a little bit more involved than the FortiGate option. We then have two-factor authentication. So as I previously mentioned, we've got Forti token, which is available in both physical and mobile applications. And then we have tokenless, which can be authentication via an SMS text message or an email. We can also do certificate management on the unit, and FortiGate have another option called the USB Forti Token 300, and this is where the certificate is actually held within a USB stick that is a non-driver based unit that just plugs into the side of a machine, of a laptop or desktop device. And then we have Fortinet single sign-on. I'm sure you're aware of the Fortinet single sign-on. This is where we can integrate authentication into Active Directory. We can do this via agent, or we can do it agentless, and we can also plug into third-party Radius systems and Syslog, and we have API integration as well. So two-factor authentication, this helps us to enable strong password security across the network and across our application estate, and we can secure remote access to critical systems that we may have within our network. And from this we can reduce our operational overhead, so we can do self-service password management, so a user can log in and reset their password. We can integrate with existing LDAP and Active Directory databases. And if, for example, we lose a Forti token, there's a built-in lost token workflow to help you go through the process of re-enabling that token. And then we can migrate from other third-party vendor tokens, so for example, things like RSA, Secure ID, and so on and so forth. There are a flexible range of token formats to suit all deployment requirements. We have OAuth compatible time-based one-time password tokens in the form of the FK FortiToken 200, which is basically like a key fob, and every 30 to 60 seconds it will create a new one-time password. We then have the certificate token, the FTK 300. This is what I mentioned previously. This is a little USB stick that plugs into the side of a laptop or desktop. There's absolutely no need to install any drivers to use the USB. It just works out the box. And then we have the FortiToken Mobile. So this is simply an app that's based on Android, iOS, and Windows Mobile. You can download it from their respective app stores. It's free to download. And then we can use SMS and email tokens. So you can buy a bunch of SMS messages from Fortinet, and they will SMS a password out to your end users. And it will support any device capable of Radius, so things like Cisco, F5, Juniper, and so on and so forth. And we can also tie it in with Microsoft Windows Domain Login and OWA. So two-factor authentication continues here with the FortiToken Mobile. I've already said that it supports Android, iOS, and Windows Mobile. We can have two different types of passcode, so we can have a 6 or 8-digit passcode, and we can set the refresh rate to 30 or 60 seconds. It's also free to install. It supports other time-based one-time passwords and HOTP or OAuth tokens, e.g. Google or Dropbox for Amazon and so on and so forth. And to help the provisioning of the code, you can get a QR code, so it imports the code onto the device for you, so it's dead easy to use. The license is perpetual, so once you've bought it, you've bought it. If you lose a device, then the token can be reissued, or if somebody leaves the company, again the token can be reissued. It's not as if you have to basically forfeit the token. It's still supported if someone's left the company, and we just assign that token to another user and device. So the certificate authority, this is a function within the FortiAuthenticator, and it simplifies the task of certificate management. We can issue certificates for multiple users, whether that be wireless, Windows desktop, or VPN authentication, and it also ties in with the FortiToken 300 USB certificate store. The certificate-based VPN, this adds extra security to your current VPN connection. So generally we just have a pre-shared key. However, we can use a certificate as well. So there again, we now get a second security option there. So we're not just doing it by pre-shared key, we're also applying a certificate to that VPN connection. And the distribution of certificate, it's simple certificate enrollment protocol, and we can also integrate the certificate options within FortiManager if you're using FortiManager within your estate. So wireless authentication, we can centralize this via the FortiAuthenticator. We can authenticate users via P or E or TTLS, and it's not just users that we can authenticate using these options. We can also authenticate machines. We can do certificate-based device authorization, again using Geek. This is great for BYOD environments. And in a guest or visitor network, we can provide a captive portal function similar to what you get within a FortiGate itself, but a little bit more. It's expanded on. There's more options within that. So the guest management, again, this is an enhancement over the actual FortiGate. So for example, users can do self-registration. We can authenticate users via Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. We can also SMS details so we get proof of identity. And then we can offload this guest management to a receptionist registration option, which again is similar to what you do on a FortiGate. So you give the receptionist a cut down profile, and they can only access the guest user management area of the FortiAuthenticator. We can also time limit accounts, so if someone comes on site and they're on site for the day, we can give them 8 hours access or an hour's access, whichever we like. And we can also automatically delete accounts after that time period. Fortinet single sign-on. This is where we can identify users and apply policies based on that user ID. It's transparent to the user, and it collects the user identity information. It also allows FortiGate, FortiMail, and FortiCast devices to apply appropriate policies on their user identity and user role. Again, it's really granular control of the network and application access, so we can do it on a per policy basis. So this is just an overview of the single sign-on options available with the FortiAuthenticator. And then, as like with other Fortinet appliances or virtual machines, we can have active passive, so we do for high availability. We can do a local sync with failover. This option, the active passive, actually supports all features within the unit. If we're doing an active config sync, then we can separate this out via geographical location. So you might have, I don't know, one FortiAuthenticator in Manchester, one FortiAuthenticator in Leeds, and they will pass information between the two of them. And it also supports the authentication feature. However, this does not include the Fortinet single sign-on option. So these are a few of the devices that are available for the FortiAuthenticator. Like with other Fortinet products, there are physical appliances and there are also virtual appliances. If you're, maybe suggesting this for an end user and they're not sure how many users they've got or how many users they're going to have in 10 years' time, or 5 years' time, sorry, it might be a good option to go down the VM route. The reason being is that it's a stackable license, so as the company grows, they can just add licenses to the FortiAuthenticator to accommodate the extra number of users within their network. I'll now pass you over to Kirk, who's going to do the demo of the FortiAuthenticator.
Normally very helpful, actually.
Hi, morning everyone. As Chris mentioned, just go through a quick demo of the Authenticator. This Authenticator you see on the screen is a VM. So as Chris mentioned before, if you've got users and customers that they don't know how many users they are, you can just buy licenses and stack them. As you can see, as well, we can see how many Forti tokens we have, how many Forti clients as well. Chris also mentioned the SMS. You can use Fortinet's messaging service, but you also have the ability to use any other messaging service. As long as you have that required information, you could enter it into the Authenticator and use that SMS messaging service as you see fit. Authenticator is, as Chris is going through, can do many different types of authentication, and it's all centralized around here. Most of it is really on Radius or 82.1x, so we can add our Radius clients. I've got one here added already, which is just another device. I think this is a wireless device. So it's passing all the wireless credentials over to the Authenticator to authenticate it against an LDAP server we've got in Active Directory. We can also enable which AP types you want and be very specific and tie that down as well. In case you want to get more granular, we can also upload our AP certificates as well and show those and activate those as well. In terms of our LDAP servers, what we have the ability to do is we can add an LDAP server, but some devices require that it uses MS Chat, and by default, Active Directory doesn't support MS Chat, but the Authenticator has the ability to join the domain and then actually authenticate it using MS Chat as well. So we've done this here as well. I'll show you that in the logs in a second. If there's also a need to have a captive portal for any of your user sessions, you can see three or four different types of captive portals we can do. We can do just a general credentials login, or we can also do a social login as well. And social login, we can use Facebook, Google, Twitter, LinkedIn, or we can just use a regular email login as well to register those users. And this can tie into the guest user registration that Chris mentioned before the reception as well. Single sign-on that comes with FortiGate, so we can set this up as a single sign-on server. As on the FortiGate, we can do log polling as well. We can do radius counting messages. We can also tie into either the DC agents from the Fortinet or the terminal service agents as well. And those can also send all those logins back to the Authenticator, and we can have those single sign-on sessions as well. So, well, we don't have any CAs here, but as Chris mentioned before, we have the ability, we can add our own CAs or import CAs. So we can have the Authenticator act as a local CA, or if you've got your own certificates already, we can just import those into the Authenticator and use those. And we've got various types that we can support. Or we could even generate a CSR to send off to our own CA as well. I mentioned before the MS Chat login. So whilst Chris was showing you the presentation, I just did a quick login from a Windows device, so a Windows phone, over, we're using, I think it's the Aerohive AP. So this came from an Aerohive AP from a Windows phone, as you can see, MS Chat, and then 802.1x. But to enable the MS Chat, like I showed you before, we've got to have the Authenticator join the domain to have that successfully join. If we don't have that, what happens is, I think I did generate some before. It errors and just gives a message saying, well, yeah, because it's LDAP and Active Directory, it doesn't support PAP. And that's only because the Authenticator was already joined to the domain. In terms of user management, we can have local users and remote users. Local users are just the users you create on the device, and we could assign those tokens or not. And then we have realms. Realms are what we use to actually authenticate users when we're using stuff like our radius. So you can have a local realm, which is your local users, and you can have multiple realms, whether it be LDAP, radius, etc. When it comes to using these realms, which is here in a radius client, we can specify, well, are we going to have one as a default realm? And in this case, I'm just using Active Directory as my default realm. But then I can also say, well, any of those users, I want to enforce two-factor authentication, and then that would use the tokens that Chris mentioned. So any of the mobile tokens or USB or certificate tokens, we can enforce that. And there are various options for that, whether we enforce it or we say, well, only enforce it if the user has a token, or we say password only or token only. Anything else I'm missing? Hang on. So yeah, that is it for just a general overview of it. Anything else we go really detailed in when you look at specific configs, whether you're going to use it for a general radius server from just a Fortinet device, or if you can use it for wireless or certificates. But as you can see, it's very, very versed, and we can use various authentication functionality with it. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? Okay, if there's no questions from the audience, then I'd like to close the call there. Thank you for joining us on Forti Friday, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Forti Friday webinar. Thank you. you.